Welcome to Talking with the Experts. Here we discuss all things business by business owners for business owners. Here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello. Do you want to learn a practical system that is designed to help individuals access and sustain a state of internal alignment? My guest, David Waldas, is going to share with us how we can communicate through our energy, what happens when we align with ourselves and how it affects our self-concept and identity, and we are more affected by other people's energy than we realize. Now, David is known as an out-of-the-box thinker. He works beyond conventional rules, blending creativity with deep personal insight. But rather than just thinking outside the box, his true focus is on what's inside each person. He believes every individual is a treasure chest of potential. And when people connect with their inner genius, they become bold, visionary, and fully aligned. David, welcome to Talking with the Experts. I am really looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, thank you. Me too. I appreciate you having me on.
So tell me, what is the aligned living system?
Living system. What is it? What does it do? Yeah. It's so I've worked with people's energy for a long time, and I have a whole backstory where I was really a business person and a salesperson, entrepreneur, and my intuition and psychic abilities just started turning on one day. And then in 2016, I got a spontaneous download, really, which is what the aligned living system is. And it's really a way of structuring our energy so that we are really tapped into ourselves rather than other people. I think most of us have had that experience where we walk into a room or a kind of an intense place and we feel like the intensity of walking in. There's an energy exchange that's happening. Or we're talking to somebody and they're really angry and we feel it inside of us, or somebody's really sad, we feel it inside of us. And so our energy is contagious. And we may not think of it that way, but there's something really fascinating happening at the electromagnetic level, where we have the ability to sense and feel other people's, it's our emotional body that can pick up other people's emotional bodies. And tons of information is transferred between that. And science is finally catching up with the ability to measure that this is a legitimate thing and it really does happen rather than just the experience of it. And so what I do is I teach people how to organize their energy. So instead of putting our awareness and our emotional awareness and our energetic awareness externally, a lot of us are like 90% external and 10% internal. So the outside world is just streaming in all the time. And whoever we're talking to, we're experiencing them or the room. And it makes it a really loud inner world. And most of us don't really think of it that way because it's just our experience. And so when I teach people how to disengage from that with their electromagnetic energy and turn it on internally, all of a sudden our inner world becomes very quiet. And we start to be able to hear ourselves and our intuition in a different way. And we start to really, instead of entraining with our surroundings, we entrain with ourselves. And it's really mechanical. We think about it, if people are always going, I can't believe it works right away. I'm like, well, if you had your door open, the wind's blowing, right? Are you surprised when you shut the door and the wind stops blowing in? And so it really is that mechanical.
Isn't there something about being empathic, what you're describing, or is that different?
Yeah, it's absolutely. I would say that I think most of us have some degree of this, and people that would really describe themselves as an empath, they're the ones who are a highly sensitive person. They're the ones that it's really extreme for. And, that was me. And I never, I didn't realize there could be a different way to do it. And I believe that, when we're babies, just like every baby, even if they don't have that empathic ability, they just make sense to themselves through their surroundings. And so if somebody's only 5 sensory, they put everything in their mouth, they touch everything, look at everything, smell everything, and they're making sense of what they're experiencing. And those of us that have an empathic ability, we turn it on outside as well. And we go, well, who are these people? What's going on here? Who am I in relation to that? And it just never occurred to us. Nobody ever came to us and said, you don't have to leave it on out there and just let the outer world stream into you all the time. You can actually harness this so you're in charge of it. So you don't have to get overwhelmed. You don't have to, get pushed around by other people's negativity or even positivity. If I don't feel like being in a good mood, I don't have an option. I'm an empath. I'm going to be whatever is going on around me.
Yeah, I've often found walking into a room or, walking into a gathering of some sort, you can feel if there's been tension in, there's
Sure.
some, someone's not, feeling well. They might be feeling ill. Um,
Mhm.
I I can sometimes sense when there's something wrong with one of my children, that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's something physically happened to them. Um,
Hmm.
so I haven't put much stock in it. I just thought, yeah, just a bit intuitive. But is that
Right.
something to do with this energy that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't like it's a gift, so we want to utilize it, but we want to use it intentionally, right? And what happens is if it's just stuck on outside and 90% of our internal experience is whatever we're surrounded by, like we're always hijacked. Something else always has our attention. And so, like you said, it's incredible to like pick up your kid, and if something's going on with them and that like when we have these bonds, we leave that open for sure, but not walking down the street, not sitting in a room of strangers, or if there's some angry person sitting next to you, like you don't need to absorb their energy. And it's just never been an option until we realize how to restructure our energy. And, you know, when we experience ourselves as a reflection of our surroundings, it adjusts our behavior a lot because we start to manage whatever surrounding we're in instead of managing ourselves. Well, it's really how we manage ourselves.
Mm.
And so, we're always like, I would laugh at myself. I remember one of my clients saw me at the grocery store. I'd parked my car and I'm walking across the parking lot and I got this big smile on my face and she stops me. She goes, "You must be the happiest guy I've ever seen. Like every time I see you, you have this big smile on your face." And I heard, through my psychic abilities, they're like, "Not really. You're just manipulating everybody else to feel better so that they feel better for you to be around." I was like, "Oh, that doesn't feel nearly as good as that I'm just this really happy, fun-loving guy." But as empaths, we have to manage everybody because we feel everybody.
Mm.
And so if somebody has a problem and it's showing up in us in a very uncomfortable way, we often let go of whatever we're doing and then make their problem our priority because we can't get comfortable until we've helped them resolve it. And so we're hijacked all the time. And then our identity starts to mix with that. And we start to don't we it makes it hard for us to trust ourselves to stay on focus and to not get sidetracked by or knocked down. Or say you're getting ready to record and you know there's some angry thing that happens beforehand and you're absorbed all that energy and now you
Mm.
have to be here recording it. It's really hard because we have to like navigate around everything instead of being able to hold our own stability.
Yeah, and in the workplace, sometimes, we can find this a little bit challenging because there's so many different personalities in the workplace. How can we
Absolutely.
stop ourselves from absorbing the energy that everyone else is putting out?
Yeah, and we end up appeasing them too, right? So we're always managing their energy or moving around it. And so I always say that our emotional body is like cameras and microphones that are we can put wherever we want. And so when people talk about being an empath, they often describe it as the ability to feel others really deeply, but it's really the ability to feel deeply. And whatever we place that empathic ability on is what we feel. But since we put it out there as babies, we've left it on out there. And so it's like cameras and microphones that are, you know, reading everybody else's emotional energy, but the speakers and the screens are in here. And so when we take the emotional body, the cameras and microphones, and we do a hard reset with them and basically go through what I call the consciousness lock, which I'll explain in a second. But we bring them home, and it's not bringing our energy back. It's not shrinking because we bring them home, place that awareness on ourselves. So now we're feeling ourselves at 90% and the external world at 10%. And then we can expand our energy way out because most empaths are always kind of like, I'm trying not to be too big because I touch everything and then I feel it and then I experience it. And so it's, when we want to have a big impact on the world and when our energy's right here is, I mean, that's how I used to wear mine. I was like, don't touch anything. It's all contagious. And so when we get to be able to expand our energy out without absorbing everything, but actually influencing things, it reverses the feedback loop and as we experience the world. So instead of walking to a room, the room comes at us. We walk into the room and bring our energy to the room. So and rather being the one affected, we're affecting and lifting the energy of. And so I was thinking of it like a chess match. If you're always going second, you're always in counter move, and that's what an empath is always doing. It's like, okay, how am I going to adjust to what's happening here? And we don't even know. We're so used to it. But it was funny. I was at this friend of mine was playing music out, and I saw one of my clients there, and she looks at me, she goes, "It's so nice to be in here and not to have to manage everybody's energy. I just get to sit here and enjoy the music."
Yeah, and it can be challenging, I guess, to step away and close yourself off from what the stuff that you're feeling. But what happens when we align ourselves, and how it affects our concept and
That's the good part, right? Like we've talked about stopping the pain, so to speak. But what happens when we align with ourselves is we don't realize that our body, most empaths are very disconnected from their body because their body, like our bodies vibrate at a frequency and they vibrate at whatever the frequency that it's holding. And so if the outside world's always streaming inside to us, our body's vibrating at the frequency not of us, but of our surroundings. And so when we clean that up, all of a sudden our body starts to feel much more deeply connected to us. And then when we go like, oh, I just kind of lived up here before, I created this little safe place for me up here, but now I get to actually like feel more connected to my body, be more grounded, be more in tune with it. And then we start to go, oh, I'm also carrying all the stuff that isn't mine, like or these old traumas or these old coping mechanisms. And then we don't want them there anymore. They could hang out all day long before because we weren't inhabiting our body. But once we start to really move in, we go, wait a minute, this old thing from sixth grade, that's got to go. And it's amazing how much it affects our identity because when our identity is always coping mechanisms and always responding to and always dealing with the stuff that's kind of the triggers that have just been sitting in our body, we start to clean them out. We start to trust ourselves differently. We start to really feel what we want because we can prioritize what we want for ourselves over what somebody else wants us to do for the first time usually. And that it's always amazing to clients how they're like, gosh, I just feel like a different person. Like I feel like me, but like really me, not just me trying to figure out how to manage all this stuff that's going on. And, we just start making different decisions from that place because we don't go, I'm not here to make them happy. I'm actually here to do what I want. But I've been an empath so long, of course, I'm going to take everybody into consideration. But now I actually get to prioritize what's right for me instead of just being in reaction to everybody else's demands.
and so what if you're not empathic? How can we deal with the energy that we know that there's something going on, but we can't quite
Yeah.
put our finger on it?
Well, here's the thing is everybody has the ability to be empathic. And a lot of people don't think that they are because we all create our really creative coping mechanisms. And so a lot of people just shut it down and flatline themselves. And so they're actually having a very flat experience of being. And it really kind of limits their ability to feel alive and vibrant because they had to turn it all off. And so they go, yeah, I don't feel anything. And they're like, well, let's activate it then. Because the reason it's not activated is because it was never safe to have it on. Maybe you were in a home growing up where there was a lot of anger or there was a lot of, whatever that didn't feel good to you. So shut it down. And so when we open it up with the ability to be in control of it, all of a sudden life becomes super vibrant. We start to get really excited about whatever it is that we're doing. And we become way more intuitive because now our inner world's quiet and we're connected. And so it's true for empaths, they become more intuitive, but even people that wouldn't identify as empaths, all of a sudden now that channel of intuitive guidance makes sense to them. And, when we're just living this kind of flat, three-dimensional duality consciousness world, because all that's turned off, like the world is flat. And it's, and when we actually have that multidimensional experience of, because that is what it is, when our empathic ability turns on, it's extrasensory. It's not something that's just third dimensional. We become much more tuned in, much more activated, much more alive. And it's always, those clients are so fun when they experience it. I remember I had this one client who was like it's a business executive, and his wife had been coming to see me. He's like, I just came in to check this out. And so I helped him open up those channels. And he texted me like, he's like, I just drove home and I drove by this field that I've driven by every time, and it was all alive and vibrant and all this color and like aliveness. Like, has it been there the whole time? And sadly he didn't come back. It was just he just wanted the one experience. But it just blows my mind that once somebody tastes how vibrant and really like it feels magical at first when we open up to it, that this world is that we live in, that they wouldn't want to just harness that and have that be their experience of being. Because living flat, once we realize how vibrant this world really is, when we access beyond the mundane, it's an exciting place. It's a dynamic place to live. Um, but if not, it just feels like everything's just,
Yeah.
here.
So how can a lot of mental health issues can
Mm,
dampen, I guess, the ability to see beyond what is possible.
yeah, yeah.
So how can we use our abilities to get over that hump to be able to see what's on the other side?
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, I would say quite often, like empathic abilities and intuitive knowing and stuff, if we don't know how to work with it, often can create mental health challenges because we're overly sensitive. And so I think a lot of mental health challenges, sure, depression's a different one, right? But I've also worked with clients who are depressed. And as soon as we open up that world, they're just like, how can I be depressed in this vibrant world? And their neurochemistry starts to shift. But I think we're all here to be activated. And if we're not, like, we're not going to feel fully alive and we're not going to explore things. And so, I think it's always surprising to people when they do really get their energy flowing and become really intuitive, um, just how mental health stuff clears up because they start to get really excited about their life and they feel in control of it. And when the world's just coming at you, you don't feel in control of it.
Mm.
And so you shut down, and people that are having anxiety attacks, quite often that's because they're trying to block the energy and as opposed to learning how to let it flow through them. And so, um, it's amazing how when we get control over our energy field and learn to open up our energy centers, let them flow with intentionality, not just be open. Because I think so many people that are spiritual go, oh, I just want to have a non-ordinary experience. And I did it first too. I'm like, this is so cool. I can't believe this is happening. But they often become so enticing that we end up in this kind of dreamy state where we're not getting stuff done. And so the people I work with are really high achievers. I work with people that are, especially like my one-to-one clients are people that are doing huge things in the world and have these big influences, and they want to be more in touch with themselves, more in touch with the message they're bringing. And we communicate through our energy so much and our ability to be grounded and stabilized because when we're grounded and stabilized, other people look to us for that stability. And that's one of the biggest leadership traits that is part of that invisible influence is when we're locked in here, people just start to entrain with us and look to us for guidance. And so, I like to play with that because right now I'm locked in that stability. But if I started to let go of it and let myself just kind of be and not really be in charge of my energy, all of a sudden I just start to kind of show up as a little bit floaty, a little bit like, what's he talking about? And then as soon as I start to lock myself back in and bring all of a sudden now there's, just a much more natural authority that comes with it. There's the leadership qualities that come with it. And when
Mhm.
we can develop that in ourselves, a lot of people I work with are in business too because they want to be able to manage their employees. They want to be able to lead, whatever it is that they're doing. If you want influence and you're not stabilized inside yourself, you know, there's always immature versions of it is how people are influencing it through, just being super charming or, being flirty or whatever versus like, there's something I really have to share here and it's solid and grounded. And it's funny knowing how kind of out there people think of spirituality is or energetics is, that this is actually how we create that stability and how we create that authority and how we create the groundedness is through energetics, which I never would have guessed when I first entered this world of, non-ordinary.
So how can we, align ourselves better? How can we find that groundedness? What steps do we need to take?
Yeah, I mean, so that's what the line living system is. So basically, it starts out with what I call the consciousness lock, and it's based on the idea of what you see on the space shuttle or space station or even a submarine. An airlock is basically if an astronaut's outside and they want to go into the space station, they can't just open the door and go in because the vacuum of space would, suck the pressurized cabin out, and so there needs to be a chamber. And same thing with us. If we're just open and going, oh, like the energy is just flowing through, there is no delineation. There's no separation. There's just us, or there's the world, and then there's the world inside of me, as opposed to there's me in the world. And so what we do is we actually will, just basically take our emotional body and expand it out for a minute, and then we turn it off temporarily. And when we do that, we experience that really flat feeling, but it resets our energy field. And then when we open up internally, and align ourselves vertically now. So we're connecting with, if you want to call it God, or we call it source energy. And then we're grounding into the earth so that we're really stable in our body. And now all of a sudden we're referencing ourselves vertically as opposed to horizontally. And we know ourselves as this rather than all of that. And that particular piece, it's the foundation of all of it. And then from there if you'd like, I can take you through the consciousness lock really quick. It's a pretty interesting experience.
Oh,
Um, yeah. And
is it like
so
aligning your chakras?
what's that?
Is it like aligning your chakras?
It is. I mean, it naturally aligns your chakras. So we're not aligning the chakras. We activate them and we clear them out. And so, I mean, but it's basically once we've organized our energy field, all that just starts to happen naturally. And so, our energy system is pretty autonomic unless we're leaking. And so when it's contaminated and we're letting all this other stuff in, it's not autonomic because, now all of a sudden we're just absorbing everything from around us. And so then we have to get really intentional. Now I've got to clear it out again and clear it out again. Well, yeah, it's like if it's storming out and you leave the window open and all blows in, like there's gonna be cleanup. But if the door window's shut, it's like and we're in charge of it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean automatically, it was funny. I was listening to some woman speak. I happened to just wander by, and she was doing energy like chakra clearing for everybody. And so I just sat down in the audience. I was listening to her, and she's looking at my energy. She's like, she goes, I just finished clearing everybody's chakras. Can I come clear yours? I'm like, sure. So she comes up behind me and she starts trying to work with it. She's like, they're already clear. Nobody's are clear. I'm like, but that's just how it works. And then she went to my girlfriend sitting next to me and she's like, hers are clear too. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what this looks like. She was dumbfounded. She's like, no, but you're always contaminated. So how are you not? I'm like, well, we're just not taking it in. So it's so basically, I'll take you through it in just a second, but the program basically from there moves into really reclaiming the abandoned parts of us too, because in order to cope and deal with what the world's throwing at us, we generally let go of parts of ourselves that are too sensitive or too, whatever didn't get good reviews in the unrefined version of it that we were as a kid. We tend to let go of those parts of us, and then we're missing something in us. So we're always trying to find that out in the world, and we're always sacrificing ourselves trying to find it. And so when we reclaim that inside of our own energy, and now we have a safe container to put it in, we start to activate parts of us that we turned off years ago. And we start to really rediscover who we are and start to have some more, like the when we think about how we were as a kid, it often comes back, and that imagination and the creativity and the freedom from that we just recover. And then we start to expand our inner space so that we create this really safe place inside of ourselves, because none of us feel safe, particularly when the world's coming at us, and people are always in some level of anxiety. And so we create this expansion inside of us that creates this amazing feeling of safety. And the kind of the funny thing about that is we think it would just make us feel safe, but it actually makes us feel ready to deal with the things we haven't dealt with in our lives and in our past. And so all of a sudden we take them on, and then we feel even safer once we've cleared those. And so, and then it goes on from there, but we basically start to clear out our old patterns and we clear out our old coping mechanisms, and we start to just feel more free, open-hearted, because we're not absorbing everything. So our heart can open now without taking all that on. And, I do the program over 12 weeks, so there's a bunch of steps to it. I know we only have so much time, so if you'd like, I can I can take you through the consciousness lock, unless you want to hear the rest of the program and what we focus on.
No, the program would be great. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. And so basically after we do the safety expansion, then we realize that our lower chakras, like our root, the base of our spine, which is about safety and stability and security, and then our solar plexus, which is about our relationship with ourselves and our personal power, which is just below the ribs in the center of the body. Those energy centers, they're running such old programs. They're running the programs that we grew up with. And so they're really our autopilot for our core beliefs. And so then our heart's always trying to, run the show, even though it's meant to be open and free and supported by the lower energy centers. And so what we do is we cleanse and clear out all those old core beliefs and let the heart unburden and give the new programming down to the root and solar plexus so it can be free. And then there's such a freedom in that. It's always, people are always so funny when we go there, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know how much my heart was taking on. Like, it's so nice to actually have energy centers that are made to do that, because my heart wants to be free, but it's always managing everything. And then from there we move into the place where we recognize our old patterns of the patterns that we repeat over and over again, and we really look at them as like locations that we keep going back to in order to be a victim, or locations we go back to in order to be angry, and we start to really disconnect and kind of burn the boats to those places so that we can't easily get there anymore. And then we expand out our energy and create a clearly defined space in which we're responsible for. And when we do that, it really focuses our energy, because we're used to just kind of either being here or diffused out there. And when we create a fence line, basically a defined space, we go, this is where I'm going to really focus my influence, and this is what I'm in charge of. And of course, we influence things far beyond that. But when we have a defined space, we just really feel much more in control of our lives, much more clear, and then we're actually have a much bigger impact way beyond that, because we're not diffused. We're not going, oh, I don't want to touch that. Oh, I like this. I don't like this. And then we also have these things that we call seeds, which are basically the parts of us that we don't really know the difference between us and that type of behavior. And so it's something that happens so early that, we just triggered to these types of behavior, and we think that, I'm feeling very aligned, but I keep doing these things, and we work at pulling those out too. And when we pull out those old programs, all of a sudden we're just much more in charge. We have all the space inside us to process things, and it's just a very like an instantaneous initially, and then over the 12 weeks expanded experience of who we are. And it's it's funny, I'm always hesitant to describe a lot of it because it sounds ridiculous that it actually happens, but it does. And it's so fun to see client after client just go, I'm like a whole different person, but like me, I'm just not me anymore. Mm-hmm. And when we start to realize all the ways that we're not us, all the ways that we had to cope and deal with what life threw at us, and we just stopped being them, it's like, wow, this is nice. I always wanted to be me. I just didn't know it.
Yeah, I get that. I understand it totally. Now, if you want to find out more about David's program, or you want to find out more about him, you can find him on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and on his website at davidwaldas.com. And you have something you'd like to promote today, David?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm most excited about right now is I've been working with clients in a one-to-one capacity in small groups, which of course I still continue to do, but over the last year and a half, it's the system is really dialed in to a way that it's so systemized that I train coaches now to share it as well and teach it. And so I'm starting the Align Living Coaches Academy. It'll be late September when the first cohort goes through, and I've trained about 16 coaches already. This is just the first time I'm opening it up to the public, and it's a 6-month program where they come in and they get to learn all the tools, experience it, and a big part of it is personal development. So even a lot of the coaches I've trained aren't necessarily coaches, but they just wanted a deeper experience with the Align Living tools. And when they start to see themselves as coaches, even when they're managing their team in a business setting or whatever it is that they're doing, they just have so much more influence and clarity and uplift for everybody around them. And so that academy, there's information on my website about it too. But I'm so excited to start getting this out in an exponential way, where I'm training coaches and practitioners to be able to share this themselves and master it inside themselves and get it out to the world in a bigger way. I only have so much time to work with people. So
sounds wonderful, Dave. Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing with us today about how we can, expand our energies and stop taking on so much of other people's woes and troubles. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time.